Hey friends, welcome to the School of Hard Knocks with Darcie, a place where we become unstuck from trauma and grounded in our healing. I'm your host, Darcie, and I'm a proud multi-graduate of the School of Hard Knocks. Life has a way of teaching us lessons we never asked for, but here we take those lessons and turn them into healing, strength, and self-leadership. I'm so glad you're here. Let's dive in.
Just a quick reminder. This podcast shares personal stories and lived experiences. It's not therapy. It's not counseling or legal advice. If you need professional help, please reach out to a licensed provider.
Hey, School of Hard Knocks, welcome back. Class is in session. I am here with another guest for our Rebuilt Season in Bloom series, and I am here today with Maddie Andrews. Maddie, welcome to the School of Hard Knocks.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, I'm so excited. Well, School of Hard Knocks, let me introduce you to Maddie. Maddie is a mental health advocate, MSW student, qualified professional, peer support specialist, and nonprofit founder who brings both professional insight and lived experience to her work. She is the National Association of Social Workers Award winner, as well as the sole graduate student winner of the Public Service Award. After Maddie has survived significant childhood trauma, as well as being diagnosed with a serious mental illness, there was a period of time, Maddie, that she had spent years simply trying to get through each day. Then in 2023, she faced a life-threatening crisis that left her having to relearn basic functions from the ground up. That moment became the turning point in her healing journey, which we love talking about. Now, Maddie actually dedicates her life not only to her recovery, but to creating healing spaces for others. Through her advocacy, peer support work, and nonprofit leadership, she's helping reshape how we understand mental health, resilience, and what it means to rebuild a life with purpose. Oh, I love every single thing.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Well, Maddie, take us all the way back to the beginning. So, we're going to talk a little bit about your childhood. Tell me about that.
Yeah. I had really supportive parents. They were super into mental health. My mom was a nurse, my dad was a journalist. And I was like a typical kid. I slept really well. I wasn't overly attached, all the great things until I was 4. And I was actually molested in preschool. And I told my teacher, who immediately told me that it was my fault. I was in trouble. And if I told my parents, I'd be in even bigger trouble. So I just clammed up. And suddenly I stopped sleeping. I became overly attached to adults. I started having panic attacks in my bedroom alone at night. And that's really where my mental health got worse later in life. But that's really where it all began when I was 4 years old. And it was just this super traumatic experience that made me develop PTSD.
Yeah, oh my goodness gracious. So, this event happened when you were about 4 years old?
Yeah, I was 4 years old.
Okay. How were you able to process through that because you were holding it all in and you weren't telling anybody, right?
I think I did a really unhealthy thing and just shoved it into a box because I didn't start talking about it. I mentioned it to my mom when I was about 16, and she was like, this isn't real. Like, so I just shoved it even deeper into the box. And then when I was 35, I was really sick with my mental health. And part of what happens when I'm sick like that is I just word vomit, and I word vomited it to my husband. And that's really where I started to process like, okay, maybe the reason I'm doing some of these behaviors today is because of what happened then. So I really didn't even process it till a few years ago.
Wow, it's very interesting how God works these certain things out in my
Yeah.
life in particular because I just talked today. I went live this morning. My 9 o'clock guest didn't show up for her time spot here. So then I give my time to social media. So I was talking about this exact thing, how a lot of us just sweep things under the rug or under the bed or under the sofa or put it in a closet and we think we'll deal with it someday when we figure it out or maybe never deal with it and just let it be. And these things never go away until they're actually worked through. So tell me a little bit about that because this is so common for people to hold on to trauma. This is not abnormal. I'm 46 years old and I just started talking about my trauma a year ago.
Okay, okay. Well, congratulations on that. That's a big step.
It is. It is. So tell me about you taking that step.
Well, it really had to so most of my life I had this really big problem when I thought I was in trouble. Like it triggered my serious mental illness, it triggered my anxiety, it triggered my PTSD because of that teacher telling me those things. And I had never really understood why I got into such a panic state that could last for weeks. When I thought I was going to be in trouble by a teacher, by a boss, by a friend. And now I have started what's called EMDR therapy, which is a version of trauma therapy. I've started talking about this obviously publicly to process it. I work with my psychiatrist. I talk about it with my husband. And I think using my coping skills that I'm learning in therapy. I've been in therapy most of my life, but I think EMDR therapy is like desensitizing me to the trauma and helping me process, okay, yes, this happened, but that doesn't mean I need to be in this panic state at 37 years old when a slight inconvenience happens. So it's like baby stepping, and you really have to be ready to do trauma work. Like I had to be in a safe place with my mental health because it can be very triggering and very overwhelming. So it's like one little baby step at a time. I have EMDR sessions once a week, and then I try to do things like journaling, mindful meditation. I enjoy like tapping therapy. I try to get hobbies, starting to scrapbook, gardening, baking, trying to with distractions. It's a great coping skill, but I think it's going to be a lifelong process for me to, because it was like not just this trauma, the trauma builds and builds and builds and builds and triggers throughout your life if you don't process it. So I have a lot to unpack and I'm just now starting.
Right. So it kind of came out at the age of 35, but you held the 4-year-old incident in for a long time, but then you also had other trauma happen after that. So tell me about
Yes.
that.
Well, I have a diagnosis of schizoaffective bipolar type, which means I have symptoms of both schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, along with my PTSD and generalized anxiety and OCD. And when you live with serious mental illness, it can be just traumatic in itself. There's medical trauma, trauma from being in psychosis, trauma from being in mania, trauma from being in depression. I have a lot of work-based trauma from when I was an educator. Um, it's just like because I wasn't processing what happened at 4, it just compacted everything else and made the next trauma worse and worse and worse and worse. Like, for example, in 2023, I became so manic and psychotic that I was out of work, and the only thing I could do was hallucinate. And that's so traumatic. I ended up in the ICU for 3 weeks, and which is traumatic in itself. I lost my mom to suicide, which is traumatic. I lost my dad at 23, and I held his hand as we pulled him off life support, which is traumatic. And I never worked on any of it until now. So it's like a big package to unfold.
Yeah, I mean, compounded trauma
Yes, it is.
is rough, and that's why now, there's so much more talking about healing through these things. And the importance of healing through one traumatic event is, to keep us level grounded and allowing us to have joy. But the other part of it is because life is going to continue to life. So if
Yes.
we just allow things to compound and compound and compound, I mean, that it's the same thing that happened to me. I didn't feel safe talking about my stuff. I was kind of embarrassed by my
Yeah.
traumatic childhood, and I didn't want to hurt my parents. I didn't want my parents to think, oh my gosh, Darcie remembers
Yeah.
things back from when she's 4 years old. I can't, And then I have 8 siblings. So then I thought,
Wow.
oh my gosh, I don't want to hurt my siblings. I don't want them to be like, that's what was happening. Our parents did that to you, because some of them weren't even born until my parents were almost divorced. So I held on to a lot of this stuff, but there is something so freeing about
Yes.
going from being in a victim spot to realizing you survived all of that stuff.
And I think the thing that really helps me heal the most is that I help others heal. Like
Yes.
service work, giving back, you know, sharing my story, not to say that I know your journey, but to say that you're not alone, is so healing in itself to find that community. I think community is such an important part of any kind of trauma or mental health healing journey. And that's really what I try to build with the nonprofit. It's really what I try to find for myself. I had a lot of difficulties understanding like family dynamics, whether that be blood or marriage, as an adult, especially after I lost my parents. And I was like, but we're related. Like we should have this great relationship. And that was traumatic in itself when I wasn't receiving the love that I needed to and the support and the understanding. So I had to create those firm boundaries and say, who are my safe people? Who are my true community? Who's going to support me good and bad? And who's truly going to love me?
That is so important to point out, Maddie, because that's another thing that I talk about here on the School of Hard Knocks is making sure that we have pillar people in our life.
Yes.
People that are able to hold us up when we are at our weakest moments, that you can just be hair's crazy, makeup's all over, Kleenexes is all over. Like you can just be you and know that
Yes.
you're not going to be judged. And I often tell people, if you can't think of at least one person in your life that you consider to be a pillar person, you might want to check your circle, right? Because you should
Right.
have at least one person.
I think that's a hard thing to figure out. Like we assume certain people are going to be safe in our life, but that doesn't, it's not always the case. And we may have this great relationship. People come in, what is it, a reason, a season, or a lifetime? And
Mhm.
somebody may be that pillar person for a certain period of your life, but things change, people grow, people develop, and they may not be your pillar person anymore. And creating that boundary and saying goodbye is okay. I have to do it in my life. It's difficult, makes me anxious, but I know that my stress level and my love for the other people will hold, like my stress will be lower. And I have other people around me who really want the benefit, my benefit at their best interests. So, you know, don't hold on to somebody just because you have a history.
That is another really important thing to point out, and I think a lot of people do that. It's
Yeah.
well, their blood, we need to stay
Yeah.
together, or I've known her for over 30 years, we need to stay friends. So again, relatable to me. I actually let a friendship go in
Mm.
2025 with somebody that I had been friends with. I've actually known her for over 30 years. Our friendship became really like best friends about 15 years ago. So my dad passed away in October of this last year, and I cut ties with her in December. So in 2 months, I said goodbye to two big pillar people in my life. And even now, with it being, 5 months later, it's still not a very pleasant feeling
No.
for me. But I know for my own mental health and my own emotional regulation that it was something in particular, letting that friendship go was something that had to be done.
It's yes, it's so true. Like I have a brother, but we don't have a relationship. After my mom passed, I was like trying and trying and trying and trying, but it was so toxic and not good for me, and he didn't have my best interests at heart. So in December, I just had to let him know I'm done. Like I can't continue this because you're only bringing me down and bringing toxicity into my life. And then I'm married and my husband has a big family, and for the longest time I was like clinging on to that because I wanted a family because I had none. But then I had to realize not all of them are good for me. Some of them are just as toxic as, say, my brother or somebody else. They're really good at when they need me, they're there, but when I need them, they cast me out, and that's not a healthy relationship. So how to create boundaries there, and I had to realize that I have a huge chosen family. That's what I call my support network. People who love me and are there for me and support me with all my activities. They might not be marriage or blood, but they're my family.
Yeah, I mean, that is such a good reminder too. I mean, that was the thing for me. I had to say, let one of my brothers go about a month ago too. It's just, when you are really getting grounded in your healing, you
Yeah.
become so hyper aware of who you are allowing into your circle. It's
Yes.
it's like, imagine for somebody who's maybe not experienced this yet or they're about to experience it. It is like working your whole entire life and building like the most beautiful, perfect home. You're not just going to let everybody walk through the rain and bring mud through your house and, eat anywhere in the house and leave dirty dishes. You're going to start to be like, whoa, I worked really
Yes.
hard for this. I want this to stay clean and I want it to stay nice and I want it to last. I want this house to last. That's what it's like when you get stuck in your healing. You do not just let anybody into your circle anymore. And that does not, it's so many people when they first hear that feel like that sounds selfish. When you are healing yourself, that is protection. You
It
are
is.
protecting your peace, you are protecting your joy. And when you've taken, healing is not linear, it is not the same for
No.
everybody. So when you're taking that time, that effort to put yourself there, when you get there, I don't care what anybody says anymore about what I'm doing, as long as I'm safe. If they want to be a part of what I have going on, then they better start their own dang journey because I'm so grounded in mine.
I think that's so true. Like for so many years of my life, I was so sick with my schizoaffective. I was either manic or depressed or psychotic and barely functioning that I was just clinging on to anybody. And just I didn't have the love within myself to create boundaries. I didn't love myself because I was just so sick. I didn't know what to do. But now I love who I am. I love my life. I'm getting healthy. My schizoaffective is in remission. I'm working on my trauma and anxiety. And now I know that I have self-worth. And not everybody has to be a part of my journey because it's not going to benefit me. And that's okay. It's just really okay. Even if my circle is small, as long as it's healthy, that's what matters to me.
That is beautiful, Maddie. I love all of that for you so much. And it's so true for people who are grounded in healing. I can always
Yeah.
tell when I'm talking to somebody who's really grounded in healing or they just are saying they're grounded in healing. And I can tell you have put the work in.
Yes.
So tell me about your self-love journey because that's another thing. I mean, you can't start applying these learnings until you actually love yourself. So, what did that look like for you?
I think it was especially hard in my 20s because I was having psychosis and suppression so much that I was living with constant suicidal ideations, deep depression to the point I didn't want to shower or brush my teeth. I was so low that I didn't love anything. I was hopeless. And that really went into my 30s as well. I did have a suicide attempt and I did have a lot of self-harm. And I just didn't understand what was going on within my mind, body, and soul. I didn't know how to ask for help. The help I was getting was unhealthy. Um, and so it really wasn't until my near death experience when I took life by the reins and I said, okay, I'm unhappy with who I am. I'm unhappy with my mental health. I'm unhappy with my life. So I'm going to take the chance to change it. And I got the resources. I ate, breathed, and lived recovery and I made it a full-time job. Any coping skill, any strategy, any resource, any person I could find, I just absorbed it and I did it 24/7. And the more I healed with my mental health, the more I said, I'm actually a great person. And a lot of my trauma from when I was a kid, it's this like negative self-talk. You're a bad person. Nobody likes you. People hate you. It's like this reoccurring thing in my mind, but I really focused on changing my negative self talk to positive self talk. And now I tell myself every day when I get up, it's going to be a great day. Today I'm going to do this. I love me. I'm amazing. And I catch myself with my husband sometimes when we're alone at night. I'll just be like, I'm a rock star. I'm amazing. I'm worthy. And the guy, my living room is like positive affirmation stored threw up in it. I put positive affirmations on my mirror. I listen to positive songs. I just breathe this positivity into my life until I truly believed it. And now I love life and I love myself.
Yeah, and the thing about it is when we're on this self-love journey, this is a choice. So
Yes,
you had to make the choice to
I
do it.
did.
And that's where a lot of people get stuck because there is no magic book, wand, word,
It's a lot
pill,
of work.
anything. It is. And you have got to take the accountability and say, you know what? I know what the definition of insanity is. That's doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting a different result. So this has not been working for me. I think I'm going to try going down this path.
Yeah. And it's
Yes.
And it's like I like what you said earlier. It's not a linear process. It's definitely the highs, the lows. And we have to remember that we're human beings at the end of the day who are going to have bad days. Do I have moments where I slide back a little bit and I'm like, am I really a good person? But I have tools and support set in place to like, oh, maybe I need to talk to my husband. Maybe I need to use a coping skill. Maybe I need to journal. Maybe I need to go do some service work. I have all these plans, and the important part of these skills is you got to practice them when you're up here, when you're at the peak. So when you're down at the bottom, it's just second nature to build yourself right back up.
That is so fantastic. I talk about that a lot here at the School of Hard Knocks. I actually created something that's called the Trauma Toolbox. So I talk a
Wow.
lot about my trauma toolbox, and I joke often it probably looks different than your husband's, and it definitely looks different than my husband's. Mine is pink and it's all sparkly because that's my jam. But when I open that trauma toolbox, it has different tools in it that I've created over the course of the last 10 months to help me heal from previous trauma and to help me deal with how I respond to current things that are happening.
Yes.
No, because that is the one thing that I have learned in this journey is we cannot always control what is happening around us, but we can always control our reaction and how we respond to it.
Yes.
Yeah, so this trauma toolbox, as I'm listening to some of the things that you're using, some of your coping things, they mesh very well with a lot of my different trauma toolbox items that I use for when I'm having a day too. Because even when you're grounded and healing, you're still going to have moments where things
Yes.
happen.
Yes. You
Yeah.
are. I love that you said trauma toolbox because when I was early in my schizoaffective recovery, I had a therapist who said, go get a box, a
Mm.
real box. And when I teach you a skill, because when I was in crisis, I was forgetting everything. He said, it could be anything, a piece of paper, anything. Just make that your skill and put it in your box. And when you're in crisis, go pick up your box and pick up a skill and remember it. And today, like my desk here, I have skills that I like write down or print out, like when I learn a new one and I put it on my desk. And an important part of it for me is I teach my support network my skills so that if I'm like in crisis or crumbling or having a bad day, they can be like, I see this. Remember when you told me this worked? So it's about having those different lifelines for when you're having those bad days.
Yeah, and it's just a constant reminder that we are always in control.
Yes,
And
we are.
it's a lifestyle change, like when I'm coaching and talking about this, I often relate it to like weight loss. Like
Yeah.
if somebody is trying to get in shape other than a circle, we have to
Mhm.
try to do different things, but you have to change your lifestyle. You can't just
Yes.
go to the gym for a week and eat 3 salads and lose 2 pounds and think that that's sustainable now. That's just what's going to happen every week. And I don't even have to keep eating the salad and going because I did that the one time. Like it has
Yeah.
to be you changing your lifestyle. I want to heal because I want to stay grounded in my healing because for who, for why, and how are you going to do it? And a lot of people, this is hard. Healing is hard. Healing in a healthy way is hard. So tell me, what are some of your favorite tools that you figured out that help you?
I love the 5 4 3 2 1 method when I am up
Mm.
here. So that's 5 things you say it out loud, 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste. I also love doing different breathing techniques, such as Inhale through your nose for 4 and hold for 2. Exhale through your mouth for 6. Or this one's really loud, so just bear with me. You inhale through your nose and then you go, "Ah." It's called lion's breath. It's supposed to like get some of that energy out because a lot of times when we're rebuilding that trauma or triggered with our mental health, there's all this pent up energy and it can help release that and ground us. Grounding techniques are great. Like I said earlier, getting back to the community and helping other people is a big one for me. It gets me out of my own head. It makes me feel like I'm making a difference in the world. It makes me feel like I'm a better person for helping others. Um, Having hobbies is a big one. And then I used to do DBT therapy, which is dialectical behavioral therapy. And they taught me a lot of grounding techniques, like teaching me not to be so emotional. There's this thing in DBT therapy where there's the emotional mind, the rational mind, but where you want to be in the center is wise mind. And I try to work on that a lot because my panic from my trauma really gave me that emotional reaction so much of the time. And I was like, not thinking. But one thing I always teach my individuals I work with is that the only thing we can control, like you're saying, is ourselves and our reaction. So we have to pause, count to 10, think about how we're going to respond to this, use our I feel, I need statements, not you statements, have open, clear communication, and implement coping skills along the way to prevent like a negative reaction.
Yeah, I mean, really smart. And a lot of these tools, even, what's in my toolbox, they are designed to help stop the scary movie that we're playing in our head.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Because, sometimes a brief distraction when you are doing really good in your healing, like today, I got a little bit worked up about something that happened. My husband had a dentist appointment. My two dogs aren't getting along, and I have to record podcast. What am I gonna do? So I actually went live on Facebook and regulated myself in live time and use the tools to get myself to where at first I was kind of like, oh my gosh, what if my little bite barks and
Yeah.
I'm doing this? And then before you know it, I'm regulated. Like that's what this thing is. It's taking accountability and stopping the scary movie that plays in your mind. But I really like how many different tools that you have because as
Yeah.
you start getting better, you get quicker and then you start to
Yes.
find different tools. So I call it my reboot time. Like that's what I
Yeah.
call it. So I'm actually able to reboot now in 15 minutes or less.
That's amazing.
Yes. Yes, it is because when my big trauma had happened in my adult life, it would take me 2 to 3 days to
Yes.
reboot
Yes.
sometimes, so I related when you said like not taking a shower, just laying on the sofa, staring at the ceiling, like I couldn't answer a phone call, a text. I couldn't even like function to even formulate a thought.
Yeah, I get the same way. And there was times in my life where it was like weeks, months, years where this was going on. And now that one thing I had to work on was controlling my anxiety with all of this, because I was healing, but I was still getting anxious over thoughts based on the trauma. And it could last for weeks. And when my anxiety hits, it's like worst case scenario, what if, doomsday at the end. And then I can't breathe or I'm holding my breath and then I can't think rationally, and then I'm making impulsive decisions or shutting down and isolating. So, when you unpack trauma or deal with mental illness, things can come up along the way while you're processing this, and you may have to get new skills and learn new coping skills. But I think the most important thing to remember is to give yourself grace. Like, we're imperfect beings. We're not going to master this in a day. And like we said earlier, you're going to have bad days. So just give yourself a little love.
Yeah, I mean, and it's so smart too because there are different levels of trauma.
Yes.
That's the thing. So I thought that I had a really great toolbox. And I mean, I've been using this and I've been really enjoying it. And then my dad died a little over 6 months ago. And I
Sorry.
thank you. And I found him because he was living here, right? Because we were taking care of him. My dad had a
Oh my
traumatic
gosh.
brain injury. He was shot at work. almost
Oh
seven
my
years ago.
God.
So he got a traumatic brain injury from the way he fell. So my husband and I, he went to rehab, and when he came home, we took care of him. And everything was great. I mean, it was hard. It's the most rewarding, best thing I've done in my life, but it was hard. But 6 months ago, I found him and I tried to save him, not knowing that he was already past that point. But of course, it was a really traumatic thing, right? So
Yes.
as the weeks are going by, I'm replaying it and replaying it and replaying it like on a loop. And I said to my husband, I have got to figure out a different tool because I'm grounded in my healing still, but that doesn't mean hard stuff's not going to happen. I did all of my tools. I'm listening to the word, I'm reading my Bible, I have my positive songs, I'm taking a warm shower, I'm drinking the water, I'm going for a walk, I'm talking to my people, and nothing's working. It's just loop, loop, loop. Well, then I started thinking just about funny movies and stuff that I like. And there is Beverly Hills Cop, which I don't know why I like that movie so much, but I do, with Axel Foley, with Eddie Murphy, and it's just super funny.
Yeah.
But there's that one part where the two officers come up to Eddie, and Eddie's like, "Oh, are you the new people tailing me?" And the one cop says, "Yeah, and we're not going to fall for the banana in the tailpipe trick either." And Eddie mocks him back and says, "Oh, we're not going to fall for the banana in the tailpipe trick." And I start laughing, and then I realized, "Oh, I just changed the scene in my mind." I was
Yes.
sitting here thinking about that morning finding my dad, and now I'm over here laughing because I changed the vision that I had in my head. I was like, I think I found the tool that's able to help me. Well, now, unless if I talk about that morning, it does not play in my head anymore. So changing that with like favorite scenes from some of my movies, took that scary movie out and put a literal movie in my mind where now I'm seeing Eddie Murphy or Julia Roberts or Jim Carrey and playing that out. And that is the newest tool that I put into my toolbox.
I like what you said about water and exercise and eating healthy. And I'd like to add sleep and sunlight in there. Adequate
Mm.
sleep is so essential for healing. Like yesterday, for example, I got 4 hours. I just couldn't sleep. And I was just having a rough day. But today I got 8 and I feel great. I feel rejuvenated. I feel better with my mental health, with my trauma. And then sunlight, those natural UV rays. I'm actually sitting in a sunlight therapy lamp now because it's dreary out. And it just, those natural vitamins and essentials that you get from the sun or the UV light can really boost your mood and get you out of those depressive symptoms.
Yeah, I like that as a reminder too, because I think a lot of people feel like we need all of these super expensive gadgets or super
No.
expensive tools. And a lot of it is just our own natural rhythm that we're able to align with. I mean,
Yeah,
just something as simple as sitting in the sun for 5 to 10 minutes can change your mood.
exactly.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I just we we just got so blasted out there on all these incredible tools, Maddie. Like I think we are just gonna help everybody, girl. Which is so great. But I just want to, from the age of 4, it was until 35, from 4 to 35. Okay. So what was it like growing up as things are stacking up? Like now you're in middle school, now you're in high school, now you're an adult.
Yeah.
How did that flow go before that big moment of change happened?
It was especially hard in middle school and high school because I started developing my schizoaffective, my schizophrenia, and my bipolar disorder. But I didn't talk about it. I didn't tell anybody. I had learned early on how to mask my anxiety, so I just continued that with my schizophrenia and my bipolar disorder. But at home, my moods were like up and down from the bipolar. Secretly, I was having hallucinations, delusions, paranoia, and it just made life really difficult because I call it like living in two worlds. So there's reality. We all know what reality is, but then there's the world in my own head. Maybe somebody's talking to me and I'm like, trigger, paranoia leads to a delusion, leads to a voice in my head, leads to a, can I even continue this conversation or is it too late to continue the conversation? Um, I lost some friendships because of my unstable moods. I isolated at the end of my high school journey. I really stopped talking to my friends. I stopped hanging out with them. I hid in my room if I wasn't at work or at school. And then at the end of my high school career, I found drugs and alcohol. And it became this crutch I was using to help with my mental health, which was a really unhealthy thing to do. And I was able to like go to college and all the things. In the first semester, I did pretty well, but then my mental health just came completely crashing down. That's really when schizophrenia and bipolar disorder start to rear their ugly heads. And by the time I was 19, I could not leave my home, my apartment, because of the hallucinations. I was actively self-harming. I was delusional. And my mom caught wind of what was going on, and she had to come stay with me at college to get me through exams. And then I turned into a college dropout. I couldn't sustain my mental health. I couldn't put down the drugs and alcohol. I didn't have any coping skills, and I wasn't talking about any of it. So by the time I was 19, after I dropped out of school, I told my mom that I didn't want to be here anymore, that I wanted to die. And she took me to a hospital where I was initially diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And that's really where this difficult journey of medication, medication, medication began. Like, let's throw all these heavy duty medications at you, but not explain them to you, not explain the side effects. But when you come into my office and you tell me something's happening, I'm just going to throw more medication at you. And today I do have to take medication. Like, that's just a part of my life. But I also believe in holistic care. And like, we're talking about coping skills and things like, I'm a big proponent in drinking my water, drinking my herbal tea, getting my exercise and sunlight, things like that, because I wasn't doing any of that from 19 to 35. And it left me 420 pounds, my hair falling out, unable to process emotions, completely unmotivated, not living my life at all, just a miserable person. Part of that was my mental health, but part of that was because I wasn't coping correctly. I thought a pill was the answer, but really, that's just not the case.
Yeah, that is really, really powerful. And you can see for people who have that compound trauma, how not only does it not go away because it's not being dealt with, but then it starts to really wreak havoc on every layer of your life.
Yes.
You know, where it's like now you can't even be around people and you're doing unhealthy and harmful things to yourself because, to be honest, we're human. And all
Yeah.
we're doing is we're grasping for it. Well, I know that didn't work, but let me try this one. Maybe this one will work. Well, that didn't work. Let me try doing this. And that's what we're doing. So it's so cool now that there's so many coaches out here that have knowledge. Like you're speaking from experience, Maddie, but you're speaking from knowledge. Like you can tell that you are extremely knowledgeable and that you are going to help a tremendous amount of people with what you have gone through and the knowledge that you have gotten, but that takes work and it takes
Yes.
dedication and it takes showing up and it takes perseverance and falling off and getting back on. So, as you're going through this, because now you've been on your healing journey for 2 years,
Yes.
have you had any setbacks?
It was really hard in the beginning because the reason I got on a healing journey is because I almost died. So I became really manic and really psychotic, went out of work. My husband was my 24/7 caretaker, and I was ceasing to function. And they upped a medication called lithium. And suddenly lost the ability to walk, talk, swallow, use a toilet, read, write, use a cell phone. And I was like that for a few weeks until I asked to go to the hospital, where they told me I was dying with extreme lithium toxicity, serotonin syndrome, and a brain injury. And I have amnesia, so I don't remember the hospital stay except hallucinations. I ended up having to have 2 rounds of dialysis to get my blood clear. And it was super traumatic. I had to be restrained. I was super combative. But when I came home for the first couple weeks, I just knew I was dying. I had no idea why. I had no idea what had happened to me. And I just begged to be with my parents in the pain. Just go ahead and end this. This is terrible. And then one day when I learned to read and use a computer again, I said, well, let's figure out what really is going on. And so I read my medical records, and from my cognitive wasn't completely 100% then, but from what I could understand, I was like, holy crap. I spent all these years thinking that I wanted to die and trying to die, and here I am cheating death. And that's really was the turning point and where I started my recovery is when I read those medical records. I was like, I'm sick and tired of this. I'm sick and tired of life just passing me by. I'm sick and tired of having to struggle so much. So my speech was greatly inhibited, but I got on the phone and I begged for help. I said, who's going to give me resources? Who's going to treat me? What can I find that's going to help me? And I found a team of doctors that would treat me, and they had a day treatment program, a holistic farm with art therapy, horticulture therapy, music therapy, movement therapy, you name it, they had it and it was free. That's the most beautiful part of it all. And so I went there and started my holistic health journey. And instead of just leaving it there, I brought it home. Like I started doing yoga every morning. I started running and exercising. I started being mindful. I started this toolbox, like you're talking about. I started building my toolbox, and it wasn't easy. I remember the first time I had a bad day, I cried. And I went to somebody on the farm and I said, I'm broken. I'm going backwards here. And they said, Maddie, you're not broken. You're just having a bad day. And that's okay because it's not a linear process. They were like, what have we been working on? And they really helped pick me back up in those skills. And I felt better the next day.
That is fantastic. I mean, wow. There's this song that has come out on TikTok by a band called Cortuxus, and it's pretty gosh darn heavy, but the beat of it sold me. And then I had to like talk to Chat GPT to make sure it was nothing demonic because I didn't want to be listening to that. Turns out the reason why I like it so much is because it's talking about trauma recovery. So when you're
Wow.
saying, you had felt broken, one of the main parts in the song that caught my attention was you're not broken, you're unfinished.
Yes, yes,
Yes. And so it's just like I want to blast that into my brain every day. Because so many of
yes.
us think we're broken and we're not. No, nobody's broken. We go through hard things in our life and we are able to heal. We are able to get grounded. We are able to get to a level of where we are going to confidently share our stories with other people and help them see this is not it for you, friend. There is a life out there. And Maddie, your story, like, yay! Hats off to you, friend. I
Thank
mean,
you.
that
Thank
is
you.
like a beautiful journey of just hardships, but to be here, I know you're living in the days that you used to pray for.
Yes, I am. I never could. If you had asked me 5 years ago, would I be in graduate school getting my master's in social work? Would I have started a nonprofit? Would I be working where I work? Would I be loving life? I would have laughed at you. But that's the power of recovery. That's the power of positive thinking. That's the power of coping skills. That's the power of taking control of your life. And my life is just exponentially better every single day because I make it that way.
Yes, I love that so much. Thank you so much for sitting with me today and sharing your
Yes.
story with me. I have greatly, greatly appreciated hearing it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, absolutely. School of Hard Knocks. If you want to reach Maddie, you can find her at jesupport.org. So you know what to do when this episode is over. Go and jump on there, support her, share all of the things, do all of the things. There's more than enough room at the top of this mountain for all of us. And as always, when you are walking with the Lord, healing is always possible. I'll see you guys on the next episode.
I'd like to thank you for sharing your time with me today. And I'm so proud of you for stepping into your healing journey. Please share this with every single person that you know. I'm here to make the biggest impact possible, and I can only do that with you by my side. I hope you hit that follow button and you save me to your library so you never miss an episode. We just took another break out of your wall, and remember, with God, healing is always possible. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.